My name is Thuy Bui and I'm 56. My job is also technical sales for a global company that is out of Japan. Um, and I am also in a very technical field doing sales for probably over 20 years. And it's something I very much enjoy. But I really started out with a different background because of an artistic side. So I actually went non-traditional and really studied architecture at University of Virginia. And it was something I was really interested in until it got to the very technical physics stuff. And then I transitioned out of that and went into economics and psychology and double majored. And then went into a financial analyst role for several years, which I enjoyed until like towards the end because it was very repetitive. So, and because of my family, we love getting challenged, pushing the envelope, learning new things. So in transition, after I met my husband, he was the one who got me into more IT, like information technology. And then I went to work for a service provider, did what they call tech support, which is like at a like late shift where no one wants. It's like they call it the graveyard shift, but it gave me the opportunity to transition roles into working in the information technology field. And then I was able to get certified, went to one of the big IT OEM provider, Cisco Systems, and worked there several years before I transitioned to NTT. So I have like, what's different is maybe because of my age, I have like, I call it flashes of impressions and memory. I was 7 when we came over, and I was very lucky because my dad was actually studying and getting his PhD here. And as part of being from the Navy, the Vietnamese Navy. And so we had information about, the war, what was going on. He actually had some American friends from the Navy who was going to come pick us up. And we were able to leave actually before they came because we stayed at the naval base in Saigon. So luckily, my dad was able to leverage his relationships and call back from the Pentagon, call home and let us know like what's going on. We were able to leave like 4 days before the fall. He had a Navy friend who, I think it was his daughter, who was married to American and indicated that, she would say that we're her family, and we're able to get one of the few flights out to Guam, and then from there be able to communicate back to my dad, and he was able to meet up with us at Fort Chaffee in Arkansas. So we were very lucky because we didn't experience the typical struggles of trying to get over here, get a lot of the family over here, because my dad was obviously part of the Navy and he was already here and established. Yeah, so very similar to a lot of people that I know. We were My dad had rented a house in Washington, D.C. So, that's where we came in. We were put right in school. At that time, they didn't really have like ESL. So we were able to get some tutoring from some of the friends. I had no idea what was going on. It was it was just similar to my husband, where we just kind of try to figure out what was going on. And then I think over the summer, then we actually went to like learning, the English language. And because I think I was so young, it wasn't as much as a struggle to kind of adapt, because I was one of those like more quiet person who kind of like stayed in the background, and then slowly I felt more comfortable, as well as I think there were some teachers that like made an impression because they were more understanding, and then they allowed me to like really question when I started like learning more of the English. And similar back then, we had like the little dictionary that tells us to help us translate, but it was I just have like some memories of going through struggling and communicating. One of the stories my dad likes to talk about was like during the playground, I fell, I cried, and I think I was like devastated because I didn't know how to communicate that I wanted to go home. I didn't want to be there, and no one understood me. And he came, and so at that time he was like my hero. And so there's like, and then we were very involved in the Vietnamese community, especially because of the Catholic Church. And so, and they brought us up to participate. And then also because of the church, we learned the Vietnamese because my parents want us to like keep our culture, keep our identity, because it's very important, even though we came over to the US. So she was like my everything. She was like, I would say that she was the glue to our family. She was beautiful, but not beautiful only from the outside, but also from the inside, because she was kind, she was smart, she was hardworking. I mean, she came over here, and to make more money, she would clean like the churches and stuff, and she would study, and and I mean, she taught us everything, like chores, like, and she taught us like values, right? Like how she was very nurturing, I guess, how to be a contributor. And then she had us very much focus, this is terrible to say, but focus on our education. So like, typically most families teach the daughter like cooking and stuff. Truthfully, I really didn't know how to cook very much. I mean, even in college, we joke about how I didn't even know how to boil an egg. I do the dishes, I would do the laundry, I would help mow the lawn, do all the, chores, work very early. Like, I think I started working when I was like 15. But like the cooking, she would take care of everything. She very much enjoyed baking. She was very artistic. So I think we were very lucky to have her, because she just kept our family. And not unlike some families, affection and expressing love and hugs and kisses was like something critical to her, that she taught us, kids, to be affectionate. So marrying like my husband too, like, I would hug his mom, I would kiss his mom. And in the beginning, they're like, this is not something they're used to. So yeah, I think because of the education that both my dad and my mom had, it's a little somewhat more French and westernized. So expressing like our feelings and our love, it was like very much critical to how we're brought up, I guess. And so not only like within the family, but also expressed to friends and other families that are very close, where it's not just the church, but also like my parents are very, especially my dad is very outgoing. So there's always like some activity that we're involved with, like jatet. We would go, you know, when we're young, we wouldn't do much, but we'd help like set up. We would like hang out. We would perform. Like my dad with one of the teachers created like Mekong Performing Arts. So we would go and perform, dances and share, even for like a wolf trap or something, or internally when there's shows and stuff. So what's kind of interesting is that we're a little bit more strict and we're very close to our kids. So we're lucky because we're able to grow up here and both go to college and had a successful career. So they both actually went to private school, and because of the private school, it gave them the ability to accelerate their learnings. So, like by the time my daughter, both of them got into Thomas Jefferson High School. So they grew up here. They were very lucky going to private school until, 8th grade. And because of that, they were able to accelerate, especially around math. So my daughter, like as a freshman in high school, she was already doing calculus. My son's not as accelerated, but accelerated as well. So it gave, education was very important. The family as a unit, and also because his parents has always lived with us, that they're kind of brought up that family is not just your immediate family. It's like you're very close with your uncles, your aunts, your relative. Like, so there's always big celebrations around the birthdays, especially for the parents, and around Tet, and then around the holidays where we get together, we do potluck, and we very much, my kids love Vietnamese food. They're actually cook Vietnamese food, and even my son, who like even now today at in college, he makes food like pho or bánh xèo, and they're very proud of that, and we're proud that they keep the culture, they keep the values of the family unit, and then they help for the community. So like my daughter is very much involved because she's doing computer science, is to give back. So like she leads around like hackathons. She does some sessions like with some of the companies to do a workshop to help them like find jobs, like internships and stuff like that. So I think because of how my parents brought us up to give back as well as to care how about others, not just yourself, and to value the family. It's like the key, I think, areas that we're able to share with them. Yeah, his mother still lives with us. So even though he's the youngest, I think it's because of all of the older siblings giving him the opportunity to go to college, and he had the opportunity to work for a very good company. So they've pretty much lived with us even when we've first got married, And then there was only a short period where they moved to California, and then we moved from Maryland and stayed at my parents actually, and they helped me with raising Brianna at the time, as well as a little bit of Nicholas. So 100% we're like, we were not ever going to move away from my parents, because it's like they're there for us whenever we need. And in the beginning, our jobs included a lot of traveling and stuff. So I think for us, it's not just us, my parents, or the uncles and aunts and nephews and stuff. It's like everyone in a relationship as well. So like our parties, like his family would get together, like their get together when I first got to know him, there were like 50 people, and they're all direct relatives, if that makes sense, because his family is very big. And so I think on my side it's not as big, but my parents kind of adopt. So my dad adopts, because dadawa is like so we have a lot of like siblings. I think because my dad was part of the education system in the US, so we very much benefited and of understanding about the process and as well as what's needed, right, to get into a good college. And I think even with the ESL programs, there are other areas where I'm not sure if my sister's involved with the areas where, they have like the workshops, so that you learn not just the simple education steps that you need from for the refugees that just come over, but also like to be more strategic, and then what areas that you can be involved with to give you the connections. Because from having a sales background, it's the people that you meet, the people that you're able to connect to, as well as having community that you can ask questions when you need somebody to like be there to help you, right? My daughter, who's has some friends who are part of the who came from Vietnam and studying as an international student, they actually have Facebook community that helps them find internships, gives them tips, build relationships, like a mentor. That is so important, to have a mentor who can help guide you. Have you considered this? Because each person have their own experience that can be shared throughout the community. And because sharing it allows everyone to experience what other experience. So you have an ability to, I think, adapt quicker, because you have some insights that what other people have gone through, what helped them be successful because they went through these steps, or what areas you should avoid, right? Or at least tips on how to manage your journey, because I think part of it is like, I don't call it storytelling, but giving impressions of how you can achieve your goal by like making connections with other people, and people who are open to providing the mentorship and guidance that you need. So unfortunately, right now, like I do volunteer work and stuff. I mean, my kids are finally in college, so they're more independent. But as my husband and I are less busy, and in a couple years when we retire, I think I want to look at ways where, we can contribute, because, in different programs. So my company has some of those, like how to be a mentor, like to provide mentorship. But I think that's, an area that allows you to interact, and as well as, from the church, the church groups and stuff. Like, I don't think I've ever had that issue. And, because I grew up here pretty young, I don't speak like totally 100% accurate Vietnamese. I mean, I can read, I can somewhat write Vietnamese, but I would say, like, I think in English and I translate. So it's, because I grew up here, but I feel like even though I grew up here more than I grew up in Vietnam, I'm 100% Vietnamese because of how my parents brought us up. That, even though they call us Vietnamese-American, I think I'm Vietnamese, even though I speak probably more English than Vietnamese. and I think even though both my kids, they're in college now, they don't speak Vietnamese. They can understand some, right? But they don't speak Vietnamese. But if you ask them, they feel like they're Vietnamese. My husband gave the story where, they're doing VSA stuff. They're joining, joining some Asian groups, and clubs and stuff, and they want to go back to Vietnam, and they want to meet our family. One of the big projects that they did, which they said was one of their favorite from elementary school, was the genealogy, where they learn about their ancestors and, the family and where everyone grew up. So I think having that involvement, having friends, as well as the intimate extended family, allows them to keep that Vietnamese identity. Even though we grow up here, it doesn't matter where we grow up, because we're Vietnamese. How we look on the outside and how we are in the inside as well. Sometimes a lot of times it's good to keep the tradition, right? So, like, we would dress up in our yai, we would cúng, which is like, pray. We would have the traditional, lì xì, which is like giving the envelopes with the money, and making the wishes and being respectful, and attending functions, whether it's the church or chùa, which is the Buddhist temple. They also have, and then giving them the opportunity to learn, about the culture. There's always programs, like, even I think there were a couple, like, that was done in the Smithsonian around Tết, and having them participate. The general, I think, văn nghệ. So, like, where they have the shows and they have the chance to connect with other young adults, or even folks who just came over. I think those things allow them to experience what we experience when, growing up. And keeping those very simple. I mean, it doesn't have to be very complex either. It doesn't have to be extravagant, but keeping those, like, typical heritage, culture, and values. Like, I would imagine that, like, my kids would still be able to teach their kids the same thing and not lose their identity, because even though we came over here, I came over at 7 years old, and they are born here, they still feel like they're Vietnamese. So it's important to us that they feel that, and it's important for us that they feel close to us and feel close to the Vietnamese community. It doesn't matter if, like, folks were not born here, right? Because my daughter is actually rooming with an international student, and they get along very well. So I think the ideology from Vietnam, they're very progressive now. They're much more westernized, and I think it's partially because of all the, Facebook, more less Facebook actually now. It's more like Instagram, where they get exposure to not Vietnamese culture, but culture from all over the world. So they're much more open-minded, I think, and then it allows them to create their own identity, and that identity is not just me being a Vietnamese, growing up in America, I guess. I have a different perspective. Like, my perspective is not politically slanted, like, because, to me, everyone have their own viewpoint and their belief, and my viewpoint doesn't mean that I know better or am better than someone else's. So, and I think truthfully that I'm very lucky to come over here, because I I kept the Vietnamese identity, but because of growing up here, it's more open and westernized, that I have so much opportunity that, I have some friends who their husband doesn't want them to work. I cannot understand that. And so coming here allowed me to like explore, to like challenge myself, to make a life better for my family, for my kids, and for the next generation. The impact of the war still kind of, to me, is still painful, because of the experiences that people have to go through. Like, nowadays, I still understand why there's still war, truthfully. And maybe because I'm still idealistic, like, there should not be any anymore. I mean, we're in a world where I think there's just too much focus on like dominating or pushing your viewpoint. And so, I mean, my hope for their generation and later is that it's because there's more multicultural mix of like how they identify themselves, because they're just not focused on like a country, because socially they're well more exposed, I guess, to different ideology, that they're more open, I guess. I don't know if my explanation is not what you're looking for, but what the impact of the war is, I think, not only from the Vietnamese standpoint, but from, the American standpoint, will be different based on your experience. And my experience, like, you know, to me, there was not that big an impact because I had my family, right? We went to Guam. To us, it was like almost like a vacation. We were camping out. We had food. My mom was there. They showed us movies. They gave us, you know, candy. They gave us like I still remember. I think maybe it was in the U.S. that we landed. They had us in this gym with the mats, and they gave us like crackers with cheese. So the impression was never like negative. And because, I didn't experience any part of the war, I think it doesn't impact me as much as others who had to struggle to come here. So I think my viewpoint is very insulated because of what I went through. I think it's very important to participate, and even if it's not actively, is to at least, explore where you come from, right? Identify with with, I guess, not just your ancestors, but your family who are probably still there. You know, like my dad's side, we still have tons. I would say like 100 relatives who are still there, right? As well as, you know, less so on my mom's side. My mom's side, a lot went to France, but to really learn about our history, learn about our values, our culture, and I guess connect with others, whether it's from, you know, work, whether it's from just participating in some events. It's critical to be able to learn about yourself, because by learning about, you know, Vietnam and learn about our history, you learn about yourself and where you came from. I think from my standpoint, and because I think I'm a mom, we should be more open-minded and value everyone, no matter who it is, as well as to share your story, share your learnings, share your life experiences. And by doing that, you then make connections, and you make friendships, and you make lifetime impact by these little moments that or learning experiences. And when my dad asked, "Oh, you know, would you like to get interviewed?" At first, I was like, "My dad's getting interviewed. Why should I, you know, get interviewed? He'll probably tell all the stories." But I guess each of us have our own life story, and hopefully, someone will learn from this in the future and make the right choices for themselves and live the best life that they can, because that's all what we're put on this you know, world to be, is to go through our journey to love, to share, to help others, and that's it.